Tonight, rather than hear me expound on our recent solidarity trip to Israel, I felt it would be a wonderful privilege for all of us to hear reflections from some wonderful, beautiful congregants, some of them you saw up here as they lit our Shabbat candles this evening, who joined me on our recent solidarity trip to Israel. The journey was more than a mere visit. In this moment, specifically in this moment, it was an opportunity to connect deeply with the resilience and advocacy that define the spirit of Israel and its people. We engage with those I like to call resilience and advocacy pioneers, those who embody profound depths of heart, individuals, medical and mental health professionals, venture capitalists, soldiers and intelligence experts, rabbis, peace advocates, Jews and Arabs, whose unwavering commitment to community and humanity caused all of us not only to be inspired, but to leave with a sense of hope for those doing this sacred work on the ground. Over a period of 8 days, while an energy of uncertainty permeated most of the country and region, our small but mighty group traversed the north, central, and southern parts of Israel, doing our best to bear witness to numerous stories of hope amidst adversity, of determination in the face of challenge, and of the profound impact of solidarity throughout the country. This trip further reinforced the enduring bond between our community and Israel, reminding us of our shared values and our sacred responsibilities. As we listen to Natana, Robin, Wendy, and Katherine, who I call upon at this time, I am hopeful each of you will feel inspired to further strengthen your own support and advocacy, not only in Israel, but in our lives and our communities as well. As Rabbi Cantor Bernstein noted at the beginning, this is a tough time. Yesterday in Tel Aviv was another moment, a reminder of the uncertainty of these moments. And may these testimonies that we're about to hear, these small snippets of time, deepen our understanding, promote more questions, and deepen our connection to the enduring values of justice and compassion that I know unite us all. I delight in calling upon Natana, followed by Robin and Wendy and Katherine.
I'm Natanya Cranford. The first day we went to the Anu Museum. So having been to the Anu Museum a number of times before, I asked if there's anything they did since the 7th of October. And they sent me to this room. In it, there was an amazing display of art and photography, music and sculptures, along with a running slideshow of pictures since the 7th. I was watching this slideshow, feeling all the feelings, when I realized I was different from the others around me. I was not an Israeli soldier. So I backed up and I took this picture. Our tour guide is in the plaid there, and he has a weapon too. They're all soldiers. So I wrote this. It does feel different now. Sunshine, sun shines. Cloud cover, clouds cover. How can we not be believed? Do we deserve it? Why? Wind blows. Wind is made by being pulled into a vacuum by air pressure. I always thought wind was pushed, like a fan pushes air forward. I was wrong. I always thought everyone was human. Everyone has humanity. The sounds of humanity surround me in this cafe, this aroma in Tel Aviv, in the Tel Aviv University campus, in Anu Museum. The sun shines, the wind is pulled across me, the birds hop the tables, searching, living, flapping amongst the spoken Hebrew. The cloud covers all, the grief hides well. It pulls across me like the wind. Do we deserve this? How? The tall, the strong, the living, the young, all willing to confront death, to save the rest of us, to save the Jews. Can the weapons they carry save us? I cannot fight with weapons anymore. My weapon is words. Will my words be believed? Do I have enough humanity to be believed? The bright pink stuns me. Those bright pink flowers move chaotically as the wind pulls by them. Flowers are the life of the plant, springing forth with such hope for the future. Hope for the future? We have nothing without hope. I hope our wounds become scars, healing over and yet leaving a reminder forever and for always. We will not forget that we were not believed. The soldiers watched the pictures scroll by as they listened to the music created by the trauma of the 7th of October. Their weapons were idle, their hearts were beating. Do we carry such sins that we deserve this wrath? Do we deserve to not be believed? We each must do our part, use our strength in this fight for our people. We are human. We all are human. We have our humanity still. Do you?
Shabbat Shalom. I'm Robin Layton. I talked to Rabbi Jason numerous times before committing to the trip, as it did not feel right to me to go on a vacation during this time, to go there on a vacation. After many conversations, he assured me it was not going to be a vacation. I also shared with him that I was concerned that the community would not want us to be there and potentially use their much-needed resources. I felt so pulled to go, and when I landed and saw the hostage posters, that was it for me. Those posters we have all seen online. The tears began to flow right there in the airport. I traveled alone 3 days before the tour was to begin, and what happened right away was that every single person that I came across during my 11 days voluntarily expressed their appreciation and feelings of gratitude. From the El Al staff checking in at LAX to the cab drivers, hotel employees, the father whose son is being held hostage, the young woman whose husband and father of her 2 babies is being held hostage, the couple I met in Hostage Square during the Bring Them Home rally that is held each Saturday night, the mental health providers who, by the way, now need respite as well, the wounded soldier we met, and all the mothers. It was sincere, and they wanted me to know how grateful they were that I traveled to Israel. Also, without asking, everybody that I talked to had nothing good to say about the government. This was an important message they wanted me to take home. They have lost all trust. They want the hostages released, the war to end. They want to go home and feel and be safe. And their experiences are unimaginable. One young mother I met, there she is. She's at one of our hotels, was holding her baby and waving goodbye to her other young child on the school bus. And she shared with me how they were evacuated and now living in the hotel for over 9 months, and that her husband was a soldier currently in Gaza. Could not believe that with everything she was going through, even she thanked me for coming to Israel to bear witness and take the time to talk to her and give her a hug. At the hotel, another mom and I made a connection. I began to cry when I saw all the young soldiers, and she was crying, and we hugged. And then she told me that she did not think about this part when she moved to Israel 20 years ago. Her 19-year-old daughter was in that crowd of soldiers about to go through a ceremony to receive her rifle and to fight in this war. Another shocking experience was that everyone we met with expressed concern for our safety and the safety of our young children here in the U.S. They see our news and ask with such compassion how our kids were. Even though it's not a war like Israel that they are going through firsthand, it's a reminder to check in on them here at home. Now that I'm home, I can tell you it did not feel like a vacation. I'm grateful I went. I loved every single conversation. I loved being on the beach in Tel Aviv and walking along the shore with all the beautiful people, as Andrea and I kept talking about. You would not know a war was going on, except you know. and the hostage posters are everywhere, and some feeling you get when you make eye contact with these strangers who somehow don't feel like strangers. It does feel like a connection somehow. And in the end, I was not afraid. And even when we were at the Nova Festival site and heard bombing, I don't consider myself a brave person, but something has switched on since October 7th. If you have the means and the time, then I recommend going. Please go, they need you. Thank you, Rabbi, for all you did to make this most meaningful experience. And thank you, Joth, Rachel, and Garrett, for saying all the right things so I felt okay going. And I love the special bond I now have with my Solidarity trip mates. The people in Israel are suffering, and being able to talk to them firsthand comforted them and helped me. I will never forget the trees at the Nova Festival site and the stories we heard about those trees and what happened to the young people who went to a concert and then were murdered and kidnapped. I will never stop thinking about what those trees would say if they could talk.
Shabbat Shalom, family. I'm Wendy Batterson. I would like to speak on the resiliency, strength, and determination of our people to move forward, to find purpose and joy coming out of great tragedy and horror. Many are still in limbo, waiting and hoping to be reunited with their loved ones again. But their sheer drive to heal and move forward is what struck me most and filled my heart with pride. I have always been proud to be Jewish, but after this trip and witnessing all that we experienced, I am not only proud to be Jewish, I am so very grateful. Our trip was a solidarity trip, and to truly stand with someone, you have to hear their story. We were honored to speak with survivors, family members of those killed and those still being held hostage. We bore witness to the traumas inflicted on October 7th and every day ever since. We met and listened to those most affected by war and also visited the scenes of the attacks, including driving to Shah Negev to the Nova Festival site where every victim was memorialized with their faces on posters, surrounded by candles and things they loved. Many families built sitting areas around their child's poster because it was the last place they could connect with them. It was hallowed ground and stunning to stand in. We visited Kibbutz Milfasim, which had been attacked on October 7th, and met with families and officials. Their stories will now always be part of ours. We visited the giant fields which held the remains of the vehicles of the victims who tried to flee the massacre at the Nova Festival. All their vehicles gathered in one place, over 1,600 cars, vans, jeeps, bikes, buses burned and riddled with bullet holes. And though we witnessed these horrors, we also witnessed the people of Israel coming together to help heal and nurture each other. We went to Hostage Square in Tel Aviv and were taken on a tour of Beit Ariella, a building that was donated to the families to come together to support each other. And they have built a community where they are stronger together, using their voices to demand that the Israeli government bring them home, bring their loved ones home. Their request of us was to keep focus on the hostages and to amplify the message to the Israeli government to bring them home. We visited an amputation rehabilitation unit and spoke to a soldier who is rebuilding his body and his spirit with every rehab modality you could think of available to him, focusing on both physical and mental health. This brave soldier is determined to run a marathon in the future. I very well think he may do so. We also went to an amazing healing center, Moshav Rishpan, up north in the Western Galilee, which was built specifically for those traumatized by October 7th and its aftermath. There were yurts and healing circles, yoga and sound healing therapy, group therapy, individual therapy, and meditation. My father used to tell me, life is for the living, Wendy. Be happy. And I always thought of that as a Jewish value. and I saw it in Israel in full force. They are fighting to recover, and they are fighting for their lives. We need to support them in both. This trip showed me we may live far apart as Israeli Jews and Jews of the diaspora, but we are one heart. Am Yisrael Chai.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm Katherine Lasher. In 2020, 4 years ago, during High Holy Days, I clicked onto Beth Israel's YouTube for the first time to check out services. And I never imagined that 4 years later, instead of just watching from afar as someone born Jewish with a Jewish mother and a Filipino father, but so new to Jewish communal spiritual life and so uncertain how to proceed in Jewish communal spiritual life, I didn't imagine that 4 years later I would be in Israel with our rabbi and congregants leaning against the Western Wall, praying with tears streaming down my cheeks, together with hundreds of new teenage IDF recruits with their families being sworn in for an Israel at war. And I felt many things at that moment. I did not feel alone. My beautiful and also my heartbreaking first trip to Israel. Looking out over Gaza with our group in Israel, I had the feeling I don't have control over what Hamas does in Gaza. I can ramp up support for the Israeli people and those defending Israel. And of course, the ongoing efforts to get the hostages back are critical. I hope that might strengthen Israel and put pressure on Hamas and its supporters to act differently. But ultimately, there are limitations on what you can do to make someone change their behavior. And as a private citizen here in San Diego, I understood those limitations over what Hamas decides to do. And it got me wondering, in terms of resolving this conflict, what exactly is my personal sphere of control? And I had a paradigm shift about this with our group in Haifa. Our group visited 2 organizations working to build trust, understanding, and intercultural dialogue between Arab and Jewish residents. At the Leo Baeck Education Center, which is the Israeli Reform Movement's flagship institute of learning, we spoke to leaders dedicated to a joint Arab-Jewish garden on the site. And we saw photos of Arab Christians and Muslims together with Jews enjoying the garden, working the garden, and I thought, that's really beautiful. And I got the opposite feeling I get when I'm doom scrolling. I felt goodwill and I felt hope. But then, in light of the horrors our group saw on the trip, the Nova Festival site that we visited, the pain of the hostages' families that we heard about firsthand, and the explosions we heard looking out over Gaza, I thought, how could a little interfaith garden in Haifa possibly be enough to make a difference? The people attracted to peace, maybe the small number of society who would be attracted to a garden like that, they already love peace. And what about everyone else? And how could it possibly sustain a difference? We would need hundreds of gardens. We would need thousands of gardens. And then I thought, but what garden did I build in San Diego? And I realized I had not built one. And it's a hard question to ask yourself why I had not thought to build a garden. And after this trip, I am inspired to help build a garden in our community. And it may well be a metaphorical garden rather than an actual garden. When we visited the Arab Jewish Cultural Center, Beit HaGeffen in Haifa, we discussed with the facilitators moving beyond the concept of mere coexistence to the concept of a shared society where people are actually living together and having meaningful interactions instead of just living in close physical proximity to each other, but just barely tolerating each other and being completely separate. And I'm inspired to help increase understanding, interpersonal familiarity, and break down barriers between Muslims and Jews and other faiths here in San Diego. And I don't pretend to have all the answers after a short first-time trip to Israel, certainly. But I want to ask myself, what is the very next step that I could take in this community, not based on fear or being reactive, but that aligns with the hope that I feel and our values? And if I deplore the leaders of Hamas, and if I am frustrated with the current government in Israel, did I help create an environment, a fertile garden, right here in San Diego, for new kinds of leaders to emerge on both sides? And I want the answer to be yes. Israel is at war, and I am inspired to fight. There are those in the IDF who fight honorably and bravely, and thank God we have people like that to defend Israel. I'm not a soldier, but this trip inspired me to fight. The anger, the hostility, and the despair in myself when it rises up, and that will be a way that I can defend Israel. Just like 4 years ago, when I never imagined when I first clicked on CBI's YouTube that I would be standing at the wall together with everyone, I hope something beautiful will happen that I never imagined. Thank you.